Welcome to the Sports Business Classroom audio experience. My name is Riley Sager, and I'll be taking you along with me as I hear from some of the most influential people from all angles of the business of sports. This series guests each bring something unique to the table, from player scouting and analytics to media and broadcast, and I can't wait for you to learn how to invest in yourself while expanding your knowledge, experience, and network in basketball. Today's guest is SBC instructor and NBA front office insider consultant, Stephen Alves. Stephen is skilled in analytical skills and statistical data analysis with a master's degree in sports management from California State University, Long Beach. Certified in NBA scouting and general management, Stephen's current role is player personnel and video coordinator for the New Orleans Pelicans G League team, the Birmingham Squadron. I really enjoyed talking to Stephen about his experience in the sports industry, and I can't wait for you all to tune in. Hello, Stephen. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm good, Riley. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Of course. I'm great. Excited to talk to you. I know you've had your own experience with SBC, and I do want to get into how you got involved in sports. But first, let's talk about, what's your current role with SBC and where did you start at SBC?
Yeah, so actually I'm just getting started with SBC. I am going to be helping with some instructing going into the Immersive program in Vegas this upcoming summer. I'm also doing some pieces of content to help out with scouting analytics before Vegas. My whole goal with joining SBC once I was offered the opportunity was to hopefully use what I've learned to help some people that want to get into the sports business or want to get into, the field that I'm at, have some kind of insight into what it takes to get there and, more importantly, what it takes to keep it when you get there.
Now, this episode is going to be focused on exactly that, what it takes to get there, maintaining it, finding your own passion, that kind of thing. So when you were younger growing up, were you involved in sports? What kind of drew you to want to be in the sports industry?
Yeah, so I was probably the weirdest kid when I was younger. When I was 11, my idea of a good time, and I kid you not, as odd as this sounds, was staying home, watching old games from like the 60s up until now, or until, I guess, the mid-2000s. Just to kind of study how players kind of thought and kind of how they reacted to different situations on the court. So for me, it was weird because like the general basics of basketball really came easy to me at a very young age. So I kind of wanted to dive into more of that as like a kid. So that's what kind of drew me to like being kind of a historian of the NBA and kind of people that have played in it, people that have impacted it. And yeah, that just kind of, I don't know, it's weird. It's like, sometimes people say you feel like you kind of have a calling to do something. And that's kind of how I felt as a kid. Like I understood, I guess, how professional basketball worked better than I did with anything else in my life. So I just figured if I could find a way to make top work, why not go ahead and run with it?
I mean, sounds like a perfect plan. So you knew you wanted to be involved in the NBA somehow. Did you know, what side of the industry, whether that was, stats, scouting, obviously, marketing? Like, did you know at that point when you were younger?
Yeah, so, I mean, I've always had the same dream, I would say. Like, my top goal, like, period, before I'm done with whatever I'm doing here on this earth has to be to win a championship and to hopefully inspire and help give hope to people in the community that I'm able to do that at. So I wanted to always do that in a way where I can help with building a roster. I think that's kind of what drew me to kind of paying attention to how different players reacted to different things and, how, I guess, teams are really built. That kind of was my general, push in which way I wanted to go. career-wise. So I'd probably say, like, when I was 17, I was a student assistant at a local D1 school, which was a really good experience. I was there for about 5 years. We're about halfway through that. I met Mark Workington, who used to be the director of player personnel for the New York Knicks. And when he came over to one of our practices when I was at UC Riverside, he actually offered me a position helping him out for about 2 years, 3 years, when I was still coaching college basketball, to write him scouting reports on different players that we were going up against as we were playing them when I was in college. So I did that, and that's kind of where I got my first taste of scouting and actually working in the NBA. But I think that kind of set me up for, the getting the ball rolling, I guess, for what to actually look for on a professional level when I'm scouting, and kind of, what's the good groundwork, I guess, for getting my start into the NBA and being able to roll off that.
Like you said, the taste of scouting for the first time, what were your initial thoughts? Was it like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do? Or were you just kind of adjusting to something completely foreign to you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I felt like I kind of did that already. Like, not obviously not like on like a professional level, but like my whole thing at home was just watching games. Like, I would sit here and watch so many basketball games every single night. And there weren't games on every night. I'd go back and watch older games from like the 80s or the 90s. Honestly, people say I'm crazy, but the games I'm able to find from the 60s I actually love too. So, like, I'd go watch all those, and it's like, I think essentially I was scouting already in the first place. I just wasn't like, writing reports and sending them into people. I was
Right,
just
it was
kind of
kind of,
I was just keeping mental notes. So, for me, it was just more putting what was in my head on paper and being able to apply that to answer questions, because I know we talked about me being involved in analytics a little bit. That's one thing I learned from Dean Oliver a couple of times is, analytics isn't really the numbers. It's more of the answers that you're able to apply to the questions that the numbers provide. So it's kind of similar in the same way to scouting, right? So like with that, it's like I was watching it and just kind of watching and digesting it. But once I actually was given the task of what to do with it, I had to find a way to make it apply to actual real life situations. And that's kind of what we went about doing.
all right, so let's say 17-year-old you, free Friday night, no plans. What game are you rewatching? Did you have a favorite player or team?
Man, I mean, I will say, and I don't know if, bad luck saying this since we're about to go play the Lakers in a few hours, but LeBron James is definitely the most intriguing player I've ever watched, because his ability to really take over the game, it's insane how many ways he can beat you. With between, his passing ability, his ability just to see things happen before it happens, and his IQ is just absolutely insane. I still have nightmares from Vegas from the in-season tournament this year. But yeah, he's fantastic though. And I always tell people, like, having watched as many games as I had of Magic as a kid, and rewatching those, it's like Magic Johnson was basically the ultimate point guard, but you add a little bit more athleticism to Magic Johnson, or maybe a little bit more defense to Magic Johnson, I think you'd get LeBron James today, very well, like 10 years ago. So
Yeah.
I think, to me, that's why he was just always my guy, like the guy that I always wanted to watch, and I was always so intrigued with.
I mean, on stats, on paper, obviously he's amazing. On the court, he's amazing. Off the court, people love him. What would you say is like that special trait about him that just differentiates him from the rest?
His IQ. He's smarter than half the coaches in the league. I mean, that's no knock to, there's some amazing coaches in the NBA, like amazing coaches, but LeBron James is able to see stuff happen before I think half those coaches on the opposing sideline are able to even know. So for me, it's like, if you're able to outsmart the person that's kind of orchestrating everything from the other side, like, you're always going to give yourself and everybody around you a good chance. And when you hear about his habits, that's another person that I think I definitely would like to say too. Like, Kobe actually was someone like that to me a few times and gave me some really good life lessons when I was able to talk to him. And the good thing about both of those two is, like, their habits are just ridiculous. Like how hard they work, how hard they work, how hard LeBron works to keep his body in shape, how much money he spends yearly to keep his body in shape. It's crazy. It's like, I think that's what I respect most about those guys. Because people don't understand, like, in basketball, it's, playing is one job, but actually making yourself prepared and be available to play, making yourself, ready and sacrificing is a whole nother job that I think probably only 10% of the league really, really puts a lot of effort into. I mean, those are the guys that you really see that are like.
Yeah, I mean, you may not notice it at first, especially for those who, aren't very familiar with the NBA, but like that kind of habitual routine and consistency, it shows up in all of their stats and just how they play, how they interact with other players, that kind of thing. But let's go back to your scouting. So you were UC Riverside, and then you did a certification for NBA scouting?
Yeah, so Mark Workington, who I was working with the Knicks, he told me about like a class that he had for sports management worldwide. So I went and I did that class with him. And it was cool. It was, they kind of touched over different aspects of, kind of, I guess, different front office points. So, between scouting, between using synergy and doing video stuff, just kind of teaching people, I guess, like the very, very basic, like, I guess, like 4 points of what different people do in the front office, on like more of like a, not so common level. So I did that with him. It was about 6 weeks, every Sunday morning, I believe. And yeah, we would watch games, go over it, write scouting reports. That's actually where I really, really refined my scouting reports. And I actually really got them, I feel like, to kind of where I'm able to get them today. Yeah, a lot of practice with that, and using Rick Barry's formats for how he used to do scouting reports. Mark kind of taught me that, and yeah, that's how that went.
For those listening who are interested in scouting, what from that 6-week course did you learn about specifically writing them? You're saying the different formats and just the practice, but like, what do you think is the key component that you learned from that course?
Yeah, so I would definitely say critical thinking is super important. It's not just writing what you're seeing. I think it's a little bit more of writing what's able to be applied. So, if you see certain stuff that, whether it's attitude stuff, if you see certain things that, might be able to actually be, useful, it's more about thinking, how can player X help out my team or help out an actual NBA team, as opposed to what is player X doing in the game that I watch. That makes sense.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So that was kind of your big introduction into scouting, and like you got, it's very hands-on, it sounds like. What was one thing you learned from Mark that you just remember every day now of your career?
Oh, man. The one thing he always used to tell me, and I mean, rest his soul, Mark was an amazing man. The one thing he always used to tell me was, it's not about who you know, it's who knows you. And I probably heard that about a million times in all my conversations with him. It's so true. It really is. And, I tell people, like, my like I have three things that I definitely feel like are probably my go-to sayings for just life in general. And one of those things is, it's so important to surround yourself with people that are actually able to be there for you and people that actually want to help you and see you succeed. And my mom is from South America, and she always used to tell me, it's if you show me your company, I'll show you your quality. And I think what she means by that is if you surround yourself with the right people, the people that actually want to see you do well, and I think it goes in line with what Mark was saying, that you're actually going to, if you work hard enough, you'll find the success. So you just have to make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people and making sure, you put in the work. And I think that's kind of what Mark taught me.
In your own life, who are a few of those people?
Oh, man. There's a lot. I mean, I can literally go on a list. I could start. There's four of them that I think I'm going to go with, aside from my family, because now I can go on about my family forever. But there's four of them I think I'm going to go on, like a little talk about. So definitely, Bobby, I know you just said you talked to Bobby Marks this morning. Bobby and Woj, those two are definitely two, like, really, really big ones to me. Woj I've known for about half the decade now. I think we were just making a joke about that the other day. But the two of them put so much time into me literally every day. I have two positions. I don't only just work with the pros, but I work with them every day too. I the amount of effort and time the Woj and Bobby put into making sure that I'm learning and making sure that, I'm finding a way to not only get better from an NBA standpoint, but also get some experience working with the media every day. I think is so priceless. And I can't thank those two enough. And then, someone else I work with every day too is TJ Singh. He's our head coach of our Birmingham team, our G League team. Amazing person, really good friend. He and Adam Barnes. Adam Barnes is really good too. He's our GM for our Birmingham team as well. So those two, and then I know I said four, but let me throw in one more because this one probably is one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one. But David Griffin is a really, really good friend of mine. I've actually, Griff is probably where I've got like my real first immersive start into the NBA. When I work with Mark, it was kind of more of like a, as you're going along, do this for me type deal. But Griff is probably where I really, really got my first, this is your full-time deal. So Griff is, I always tell people, he's kind of like almost like an uncle to me. We literally, every single Pelicans game, he takes the time to text me during halftime. And we're talking about what's going on, what we're seeing. We pick apart his brain every single day, basically. And yeah, I came into the Pels in 2019, and he told me, you can kind of do what you want here, and, we'll find a way to help you grow and help you get better so we can set you up for a good future. And yeah, my first year, I scouted 40 different prospects by myself. That was fun. I was on calls with coaches from France, Germany, all over the country, Syracuse. I was calling everybody. And it was fun. It was a really good experience. He kind of just let me kind of just figure out what I wanted to do and just kind of help me to refine it. So I would do that. I would go to games. I'd write reports, send it to them. And then the next 2 years after that, after every post game, instead of doing scouting, what I would do was more kind of team developing notes. So I would go in after games, I would break down games on film. I would literally go through every possession that I would see, good or bad, and write notes, literally for about 68 hours after every game.
Oh my gosh,
I would just
wow.
stay, yeah, I just stay up every night and just do that, and then I would send it to him at about like 6 o'clock in the morning because I would hope that I'd get it to him by 8 a.m. his time. Not because he asked for it, but just because like I kind of figured, if he wanted to watch that in the morning before he goes into meetings or whatever goes on, it'd be cool for him to kind of have my thoughts going into wherever he wanted to. So I did that for about 2 years. Um, and then last year, he hooked me up with our Birmingham team a bit. So that's kind of where I have that bridge with TJ I was talking about. So helping TJ out with like video projects and doing that type of stuff. Helping him prepare for games. And then, yeah, still talking with Griff about, different stuff that's going on with the pros every game. And then, yeah, I'm doing the same thing pretty much this year. So it's been fun.
Only someone.
Sorry.
No, sorry. Only someone who really loves their craft can do that until 6 a.m. Obviously, a lot of dedication and just passion involved in that. But you mentioned now you're doing video projects. Like what was your day-to-day? Do you have sort of like a weekly routine, or is it just kind of whatever pops up?
Yeah, so there's kind of a lot, and it kind of balances, I guess, between both positions, right? So I have like my post stuff that I have to do, and then the stuff I have to do for Bobby and Woes. So I do both every day. So in regards to the post, and the Birmingham stuff, typically I have to go through and, like, let's say, like tonight we're playing against Westchester, we're a Birmingham team, right? So prior to tonight, I would go and find Westchester's last 3 games, make sure that they're available to TJ, or if there's a coach that's going to come out with the scout, make sure they have the video for it. Make sure that's good. I would watch the game. TJ and I, just like I talk about with Griff every game, TJ and I talk about every game that we play in Birmingham. So I'll talk with TJ after the game about the game, what I'm seeing, what he's seeing, kind of digest information on that, on, player performance, that type of stuff. I make sure that the film is up for the players, for them to watch it if they want to watch it. We have a platform we have for that. And then after the game, I would go and like kind of cut out the minutes for our two-way guys or any assignment guys we have down there, and I would write my synopsis for a game, just kind of like a report, and I send it to Griff after every game, so he knows what's going on. So that's what I do for Birmingham, and then for the post stuff, whenever we have a post game, I'm watching the game, and then Griff and I talk about it during the game. But then for Bobby and Woj, so typically how that goes is that every night I'm doing game coverage. So personnel stuff I'm doing and just kind of watching games. Like Bobby and I will split it like half and half. So let's say there's six games on tonight, right? Bobby and I would talk in the morning. Hey, I'll take the first 3 and you take the last 3. And usually I'll take kind of wherever the Pelicans fall because I'm watching that anyways. And we're just kind of taking notes on games and just sharing them and just making sure that, there's availability for people to get ESPN to take a look at our notes if they want to see them. Just to know what's going on and just to keep track of personnel, who's doing well, and how teams are performing, what they are doing well during the games, anything that's of note that needs to be seen. Then, I let Woj know if there's any injuries that I see, or if there's anything like significant that I'm seeing. And then more stuff, though, I guess I'd probably say for like the Woj and Bobby side is like when we have articles, or even like yesterday, they're like trade deadline. I think those are the times I'm probably more utilized. So basically what Bobby will do is like when we have trade deadline articles or bio articles or, going into the summer, he'll kind of do his reports because like kind of his writings, and he will use me as kind of like a mock GM type deal. So like for a trade deadline stuff, I had to go through each of the 30 teams using like my salary cap and personnel knowledge and make a trade for each of the 30 teams. So like stuff like that, like I can have to put myself into Griffsy, like for all 30 teams, and kind of lend my brain to Bobby for that, for different reports that he does for ESPN.
So when you are thinking of things like salary cap, take us through your mindset, like what specifically are you looking at either when you're doing game reports, like what catches your attention?
Yeah, so I think the more fair answer to that would be it's very dependent on who on the team is, what their situation is, and I'd probably say even more importantly, what their trajectory is, right? So I wouldn't answer that question the same for the Boston Celtics as I would for the Houston Rockets, right? Because it's different, right? Like, I mean, Boston is, in my opinion, probably as of today, the most complete roster in the NBA. And Houston is still kind of trying to figure out their way. And, when you look at finances and when you look at what teams and owners are going to be willing to spend, because a lot of people forget that too, like, it is money, but it's somebody's money, right? And they're going to want to see like a return off of that. So when you're able to kind of see, what is going to be okay with going forward from a financial standpoint, from ownership, I think that kind of makes it a little bit easier to answer that. But all 30 teams are really different. And, there are some teams like the Warriors that probably aren't going to be winning this year, but they're so okay with spending that money because of the product that they've had and the royalty factor that they have had to the players on the team now. So I think all that stuff kind of plays into hand with it too.
Right. I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Just very dependent on, the team and where they are in their season and where the season is in, like, say, 5-year term, that kind of thing. Obviously, scouting career, you've been doing it for your career, but then also kind of subconsciously when you were a kid just watching games. What would you say is the biggest misconception about your job or about scouting in general?
Oh, man. Probably it's people think it's so much just like it's easy and it's just like so fun. Like it is fun, don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of work that goes into like it's not just as simple as, some person getting home from work at 5 a.m., sitting by the TV, drinking a beer, watching the TNT game at 7, right? Like it's different. Like, when I'm watching it, I'm intently watching it for a purpose. It's not like there's a difference between, just watching it for fun and just, watching it for actually a reason. And I feel like that switch for me is kind of turned off, honestly, even before I really got started. Like, I can't tell you the last time that I actually feel like I sat down and just watched a game to passively watch a game. Like, whenever I'm watching something, it's like I'm watching it to try to figure something out. Like, there's like a puzzle in my head that like tells me like, you need to see this because what if this situation happens later on down the line, or how can you use this situation to your advantage and apply it elsewhere? And, to me, I think that is probably my biggest thing is, it's fun and, I'm watching it, but I feel like every time I'm watching basketball now, I'm watching it for work, which is cool because, that's what I want to do. But, I think that's kind of the thing is like, it's not just a chill factor that everybody thinks it is.
I mean, it does sound fun, but just listening to you, there is obviously a lot that goes into it, a lot of details, just mindfully being aware of so many moving parts of every game and every, trade decision and that whole thing. So what would you say to people who are overwhelmed by that, even if it's something they want to do but are a little intimidated?
I mean, I think there's no reason to be scared. If you're going to want to do it, you're going to have to put in the work to go do it. For me, I think probably the biggest lesson, life lesson that I try to live by is, and this is something I learned from Kobe, is if you're not working, somebody else is. So, when I'm deciding if, people want to go out and go party or something, and I'm like, no, like I'm going to sit here and watch a game, even though I don't have to. I'm watching it because I'm able to take different lessons, apply them, and get better. Um, you know, I'm using that time to get myself better. If I'm not using that time to get myself better, in my head, it mentally bothers me. Like that might be the one thing that's like my biggest pet peeve is when I'm not able to work, someone else is working and getting better than me. And I do not want to sit there at the end of the day and tell myself that I allowed somebody else to get better than me. That's just not what I do. Like, I need to sit there and continuously make sure I'm improving, to make sure I'm at the top of my game, because those are the type of people that win the championships. And if that's what my goal is to help Griff win one in New Orleans in some kind of way while I'm there, then I need to be putting in the work to go and do that.
Have you always been self-driven like that, or where does your motivation come from?
Yeah, honestly, I just think I've just always been competitive. I think that's the biggest thing ever since I was little. Like, literally everything. Like, my sister and I, whenever we used to play video games as kids, I mean, don't even ask her about Uno, because that's crazy. But yeah, I'm just always been that person. You know, I think when I was 17, that was actually the first time that I actually got to meet Kobe. And when I went to the Lakers facility to go and do like a tour, and I went into Jeannie West's office, and it was at the old Toyota Center facility over on Nash Street. I don't know if you've seen the pictures, but she had like her office is up top, and then she has like all the trophies like on top, like kind of leaning down against the window or leaning up against the window to the court. And so I was in her office and I was in front of the trophies. And that was my first time ever being in front of a Larry O'Brien trophy. And I think once I saw that, that probably was the biggest life-changing moment, or the first life-changing moment for me in terms of basketball stuff, because there's just something about it. Like, I always knew I wanted it, but I never knew until then I needed it and wanted it. And, for me, it's, whatever, like, I think that moment really taught me how important it is to not just yourself to be able to accomplish something like that, but also to the people around you. Because growing up in LA, I mean, we had, I think in my lifetime, we had 5 championships here, between Kobe and Shaq and Kobe and Powell and, all those great teams over here. And when you're able to see kind of what they were able to do to everybody in LA, everybody in Southern California in terms of, not just inspiring people, but also helping to better communities, I think that is what really clicked in my head when I was actually able to be in front of those trophies in person. So that kind of drove me to not only work hard for myself, but to work hard for people that are in the community that I'm working for. And I think that kind of pushed me to a whole nother level after that. So, I already felt like I kicked into overdrive there, but before that, but I felt like it hit a whole nother level after that, because that led me to really trying to find different avenues to every single day continuously push myself in different areas. Like, I know one thing we didn't really talk about too much yet, but I went to go work in CAA for about 3 months for an internship with Aaron Mintz, who was an agent over at CAA, and great friend, great person. But I always wanted to learn what goes on from the agent side too, as like a way to kind of, better prep myself for conversations I'm going to have in the future from both sides of the table. Because at that point, that was after college. So at that point, I already knew, about what kind of goes on from like the team standpoint, but I wanted to know what goes on from the other side the table to be able to help negotiate contracts. So I did that. And I went from Riverside to Beverly Hills every morning, woke up at like 4 a.m. I woke, 4 a.m. to get there, probably say around 8:30, because traffic is insane going that direction. So I would do that, and then I would come home and do it every day for 3 months, 5 days a week. And, it's just stuff like that. Like, I push myself to make sure I learn from as many people as I can, but I also try to make sure that I continuously, sharpening my knowledge in a whole bunch of different areas. And I've been very grateful for the people that I've been able to work with doing that with, and the people that have invested a lot of time into me, like we said with Bobby, Woj, Griff, TJ, Adam. I mean, we just talked about Aaron Mintz, Bill Duffy from WME now. He's also another really good one. I could go down, there's literally so many people. Matt Lloyd from the Minnesota Timberwolves, Michael Winger from the Washington Wizards. I've had really good conversations with Lawrence Frank. We talked about Kobe. I know there's so many people I'm forgetting that ever watch this, so I had to apologize to quite a few of those people. But I'm just very blessed to have a lot of really good people in my life.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for sharing that story about you going to the facility. I can't even imagine just standing in front of those trophies, like what you are feeling, and it's impacted you for so many years after, and it will for the rest of your life. So it's a very special moment. Was there something about Kobe, like a favorite quote or part of Mamba mentality that you just remind yourself every day?
So one thing he definitely told me was, I think my favorite thing that he taught me, probably indirectly, like I was saying, was definitely, someone else is working while you're not. And that's something I live by every single day. But one thing that he told me personally, like in his own words, preparation is definitely the biggest part of the game. So, making sure that you're prepared, making sure you're doing the necessary steps to make sure that you go into situations ready. Possibly more ready than anybody else is going to be, than anybody else, or than anybody else that's going to be there is super important. So, just, making sure that you're basically on top of the game is what I got from him. Not just in basketball, but in life. Like, you need to make sure that, if you don't want to come in second place, you need to work like you're in first place. Like, with everything you do. That's what I took away from him. And that's something that I'm going to remember for the rest of my life, and I'm going to continuously apply it for as long as I'm here.
It's funny you say that, because yesterday, in his statue unveiling outside Crypto.com Arena, Vanessa was speaking, and she brought up one of Kobe's favorite quotes from Ben Franklin, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. And so that's just a nice little connection. Obviously, many people knew that about him. And it spread throughout every area of his life, whether it was family or basketball. Like, he was always prepared. He was doing his most. He was working harder than anyone else. So it's very special that you got to meet him and hear it from him personally.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, between him and, like, everybody, I just always tell people, that's the one thing about me, is I would never be anywhere close to where I'm at today if I wasn't around some of the greatest people that I've ever been able to meet. Like, that's, literally every single, and there are a lot of people that will tell you, oh, no, you did it on your own. It's not true. It really isn't. I've been guided by some of the most amazing people I've ever had the opportunity to meet, not just in sports, but, outside of sports too. But as far as career-wise, I've been able to take away so many lessons from so many people that I've just been able to kind of piece together in my head and just move forward with. And it's been such a blessing. I always say that you can never not learn things from anybody. So whether it's, if you're at the grocery store and you just talk to somebody, you can take away a lesson there, or, if I'm talking to David Grisham every night during games, like, there's literally something you can learn from every single person you come across. I think when you have that mentality and you're willing to, take away different lessons and apply them in different areas, I think it really helps out a lot. And that's something that I really value what I was able to do with Kobe while he was here. That I was able to do with the 1.5 million other people I named earlier. Like, so I'm so blessed to have so many great people around me. It's amazing.
What are a few things that you've learned from sports that you've taken and applied to your personal life? Either, something you learned from someone or something you figured out along the way, but that you've applied to your personal life.
Yeah, so, I always want to, whatever I'm doing, I always need to make sure that I'm able to fully commit to it. I'm one of those people, and I think that's kind of something that, I kind of took away with sports is like, if I'm going to say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it the absolute best that's going to possibly be done. Now, with that being said, that's something that we always joke about, like TJ and I always joke about, is it'll take me a little bit longer for me to do certain things because I kind of have like that perfectionist mindset, which is a blessing and a curse, because like I'll get stuff done that's going to be very, very high quality. Like I did my own research project during the summer for like some Exhibit 10 projects that we had. And it ended up being like 80 pages and like 25 videos. And
oh my gosh.
It was like, yeah, and so it's like, yeah, I did all that by myself. But like I give myself those type of things to where when I tell myself I want to do something, that I always do it with the absolute most detail and like the most effort that I could give it. And I do that with everything. Like that's just, if I play something, I need to come in first place when I do it. Like if I'm working towards something, I need to make sure it's the best that I can possibly put together or finish. So that's kind of, I guess, how I kind of operate. It's just how my brain works. So I think the competitiveness side of sports definitely has, if it didn't really, exist before, which I think it definitely did, it's like full on just 100% in my blood for everything that I do well.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. It's like if you're going to put the energy into at least starting something, why not finish? Why not put all of your energy into it? A lot of people are competitive, like you said with your sister. I have a younger brother, and maybe Uno for you, but Mario Kart was our thing, and I always had to win. So I know where you're coming from with that. But is that that trait of just, being very thoughtful and mindful with whatever task you're doing, do you think that's what served you most? I mean, you've talked earlier in the podcast about the work ethic and that kind of thing. But for anyone who is trying to focus on one specific skill right now, who wants to go into scouting or the sports industry, what would you say? Is it, finding what your passion is, or just like learning to stick with something? What is that?
The biggest thing I would tell people is you have to be willing to sacrifice, right? Like everybody just wants to kind of go and be a GM tomorrow. Like that's not how it works, right? Like it's not. Like I've talked to so many people before that have asked me like for advice on like, what to do and how to go forward, and haven't worked in basketball at all. And like a good thing that I tell them is like, well, the easiest way for you to kind of get some experience working with the actual team is to maybe go and talk to some local colleges, like D1s maybe if they're around, maybe D2s, just local colleges, and just see like, hey, is there any opportunity I can maybe help you and learn how actual basketball works like behind the scenes here for a little bit. And I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that have told me like, I have no interest in doing that just because I just wanted to work for the NBA. Like, that's cool, right? Like, I mean, it's nice to have that dream, but I think people don't. Probably that's one thing people don't realize because of that age, because I just turned 28 a few months ago. But people don't realize because of my age, like I worked in college basketball for 5 years before I got to the NBA. Like it's you have to be willing to start somewhere, and you have to be okay with that. And the and building yourself up and getting to the point where you want to go, that'll come with the work ethic, the people you're going to meet, the opportunities that will come to you. But I think people have to be willing to realize that all that stuff takes time. And you have to build a foundation from somewhere. And I think that's the same with, whether we're talking about a career or even building a team, right? Like you'd have to have a foundation before you're able to continue building a house, right? You can't build bricks on the floor, right?
No.
Like that's just like this is how it is, and it can really be applied to almost anything. So I think that is some really good advice that I would give people, whether they don't want to hear it or not, is be willing to start somewhere and be willing to do something you probably don't want to do, even if it's not necessarily your end goal, because the experience is important. It really is. And being able to know what's going on, being able to know how things are done, and being able to know what things are like in a professional setting, as opposed to just watching it on your TV every day and just saying, "Oh, I think Rondo would be good on, I don't know, the Heat." Like you have to, there's a lot of different things that go into decisions like that, right? And people don't really know that unless you actually have that experience. So stuff like that is important.
Speaking of the importance of experience and just putting yourself out there, what are you most excited about for SBC this summer, 2024?
Oh man, I am excited to go and talk to everybody at the Immersive program. I want people to be able to pick my brain apart. My whole goal with SBC was to be able to be there to help people understand, kind of what we talked about today, but also, that there are people there that are willing, there are people here that are willing to help you. And, when Bobby asked me if I wanted to join in, it was a meaning yes, because for me, it's important to be able to help people and give back any way that I can, because kind of like we talked about throughout this whole interview, there are so many people that spend so much time giving advice and effort into me that I'm hoping that I can do during the summer at SVC, and be able to really let people pick my brain apart the way I was able to do with Kobe and Griff and Woj and Bobby and all those guys. Now, I know I'm nowhere near any of those guys as of now, but I definitely think I have a few things that I can definitely take away from them or I can pass down to them. Another good one too that I didn't mention is I think I learned quite a few things from some conversations with Jerry West here and there that I definitely feel like I can probably pass along from watching a game or two with him during summer league. So I think there's a lot that I can help people with in terms of knowing what it takes to get to where they want to go, knowing that there's going to be sacrifices they're going to have to make, and knowing that the work ethic that you're going to put in has to be better than someone you don't even know exists. And if I can go around, I can tell that to everybody that's there, and they can learn from my personal experiences in more detail that, they might have questions about. I think that I can walk away from SBC and actually say that I actually helped change people's lives while I was there, which is why it's lucky.
That's incredible. And thank you for sharing that and just for sharing your story all day and throughout this podcast. One last question. What about yourself are you most proud of? We're talking about, your journey and your experience, but that self-reflection aspect, what are you most proud of?
I always really value my work ethic and the people that I surround myself with, but I don't think I can say that I'm super, super proud yet. I know there's probably some people that are going to get on me about this when they read this or when they listen to this. But until I actually win something, I don't think I can say I'm super, super proud of myself yet. I think the journey's been amazing. I've absolutely worked my tail off forever. But I think until the job is actually done, I've set forward for myself and the goal is actually able to be accomplished, like, I think then that's when I feel like I can come back to you with the answer to that question and say, the thing that I've worked for since I was 17, the thing that I've really wanted to do since I was 11 has really been completed. When I get to that point, then I can go ahead and say that I'm happy. I mean, my mom is hilarious. She always asks me every year, like, what's your New Year's resolution? I think now I just stick eye rolls because every single year it never changes. Just to win a championship. That's literally that's the one thing every year. And I always get her telling me, oh, what else is there? And it's like, for me, that's what I wake up for every morning. I don't know if you can see him behind me, but I have like a frame poster of Mike after winning his first one in 91 in my room that I wake up to every morning just looking at. Because it reminds me every morning like how hard you have to work to be able to get to where you want to go. So surrounding myself with champions that I have between, Griff, Kobe when he was here, it was, you remind yourself around people like that, but you see how hard they work and it pushes you. And I know we're kind of getting towards the end of this, but I learned one quick thing. When Griff interviewed me for the first time in 2019, he asked me, I'll never forget this, because that's the other thing about me is I'm very, very open about saying what's on my mind. I do not hold back about anything. So Griff asked me, he said, well, like, what do you want out of this, or what's like your goal, like career-wise moving forward? And I'll never forget the answer I gave him, because I barely even knew him at that point. And I told him, well, I want to be better than you. And I think that's just kind of how I think. And when I get to that point, I'm working towards it. But when I get to that point, I think that's when I can look back. But I need to be able to at least say that I helped somebody, or I helped the community win a championship at some point in my career. And when I get there, then I think, we can look back and revisit this question for sure.
Yeah, I'll check in with you after, okay?
I appreciate that.
Yeah, but words straight from Kobe's mouth, job's not done. So you're not the only one who thinks like that. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I've had such an enjoyable time speaking with you, and I do look forward to following up with that question.
Likewise. Thank you very much. And, I'm very excited for what we have going on in New Orleans. I think we have some really, really great people, great pieces. The future of this franchise, I think, is the brightest that it's probably ever been in the history of the team. And hopefully we can go get this win in our ring tonight. I think I'm about to leave here in about 2 hours to go into what's now Crypto.com Arena. So kind of feels weird saying that, but
I know.
I don't. So yeah, hopefully we can go get the job done. But I'm very excited, and go Pels. And again, before we get off, I just want to say thank you to everybody that I know is going to be watching this, that put so much time and effort into helping me get to where I want to go. I think it's, I always tell people like how much I appreciate them. So I know that they're probably sick of hearing it right now, but they'll always continue to get that. So thank you very much, Riley. I really appreciate your time.
No, thank you, and good luck tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed this interview with SBC instructor and NBA front office insider consultant Stephen Alves. If you did, make sure to share this with your friends, like us on social media, and subscribe and leave a review. You can find the show notes at sportsbusinessclassroom.com/Stephen-Alves. Let us know if you enjoyed listening to this and tag us on your Instagram story at Sports Business Classroom. Text it to a friend and spread the news of the SBC Business of Basketball Immersive Experience. This episode is also brought to you by Hall Pass Media, a full-service marketing agency that specializes in brand consulting, event management, digital marketing, and creative design. For more information on Hall Pass Media, go to hallpassnetwork.com.